If you want to publish a book, but you feel stuck, out of time, and you don't know what to do next, then it's time to finish the damn book. Here's your host, Susie Schaefer.
Welcome to this episode of Finish the Damn Book. I'm your host, Susie Schaefer. Today's guest is Connie Monroe, a woman whose journey has taken her from Wall Street to the world of writing and coaching. Though she originally planned to pursue a career in journalism, Connie began her professional path in finance, working with the renowned brokerage firm Merrill Lynch. As she rose through the ranks, she discovered a passion for mentoring others through leadership. In 2008, during the financial crisis, Connie made a bold pivot, leaving the corporate world behind to become a life coach and eventually pursue her lifelong dream of writing. Her first book, a collection of life lessons, was written to inspire others to rise above setbacks and pursue their dreams. Now living in Costa Rica with her partner of 20 years, Connie dedicates her work to helping women tell their stories, get their books written, and share their voices with the world. Welcome, Connie.
Thanks so much for having me, Susie. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's talk about your book. What specifically was frustrating or emotionally challenging when you wrote and published your book, Holding On to Joy?
So, it's really interesting because I've been trying to write a book for quite a while. I was my intro is great, but what I didn't have in there is that I actually went back into corporate for 2 years. So my plan was I'm going to write this book while I'm on the train, and that never happened. And then I got some coaching advice, career coaching advice. And it basically was, why don't you combine your love of writing with your love of mentoring people and write a book and launch your coaching career? So I just thought, who the hell does that, right? Like, I don't know who does that. Does anybody do that? And so anyway, it took me probably about 5 years from there. And then lots of things were changing in my personal life. But I would say the most challenging thing for me was just not knowing how to begin, right? And then, it was just, I just didn't know how to begin. And I have a degree in English. I've been writing my whole life. I've helped others write countless things. And I thought, well, why can't I do it for myself? Like, how did I get to this place? I had an 18-year career in finance. I'm finally by that time, I'm living at least half the year in Costa Rica, right? Here I'm in this beautiful setting. Like, why can't I just do it? Very, very frustrating.
Yeah, I get that. And you and I have talked a lot about the sticky note method, and that's something that I teach. Yes. And I've actually taught to your groups, I think twice now. Yep. And I think that that's one of those methods that helps people get unstuck because they literally, they can't do it. They cannot move forward. And it's usually an emotional block or worthiness wound, something like that.
Oh, definitely. I was thinking, who am I? Like, I finally come here, but maybe this just isn't what I should be doing. But I knew most of my life, I knew I had this little tap on the shoulder saying, you should be writing, you should be writing, you should be writing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what changed for you during that journey as you were becoming an author and you were starting to write your story? Were there any aha moments?
Yeah, there were a couple. I think the first thing that changed was claiming it, right? So I went to this writers group. I was living in Princeton, New Jersey at the time. I think that's when we started living 6 months in New Jersey, where we'd always lived, and then 6 months in Costa Rica, which is another story. But what happened was, I'm like, I'm going to join a writing group. I'm going to join a writers group. At least I'll be with like-minded people. Maybe I'll get some, networking going, whatever. And so we're going around the table, and now I've been out of work, right? I'd left the corporate environment, and, they're like, oh, we're going to do introductions. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I really don't want to introduce myself as a manager of IT in finance. And so I was panicking. And so when it came to me, I just simply said, hi, my name's Connie Monroe, and I'm a writer. And that was it. And then the next person went, and I was like, wow, that was so easy.
Yeah.
But really hearing me say that in front of a group of strangers was totally pivotal. It was totally pivotal. And I really think that was the start of the whole thing. The other thing is, I came to realize the reason why I couldn't write that book in those 2 years when I was traveling on the train is because you need quiet time, right? You can't just come from a day in the office doing something, by the way, that you're totally unaligned with, right? Clear your mind and write a book. It just doesn't happen. And so honestly, on the peaceful hills here in Costa Rica is when I really started to make traction in my book. So it's not just about the writing, it's not just about knowing how to do it. It really is about being the right person.
Right. And you make a really good point. That's one of the things that I know when you're working with other women, because you've actually morphed into teaching writing skills and working with specifically women. That's one of the things that you talk about is really kind of creating that practice of writing and that having that quiet time, meditating, getting, just in your body when you're doing
Yeah.
the writing. So, yeah, I find that so fascinating too, because you've taken your experiences and now you're helping other women write their stories. Yeah. And so let's talk about that. What's the difference between when you published your book versus working with other women to help them write the book that they want to publish?
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because it's just like being on the other side of things.
Hmm.
And really, sometimes actually, it's really like hearing myself talk from when I was trying to write the book, right? So, one of the big things that comes up is, you know, whatever the idea is for the book doesn't really matter. It's like, well, how do I put it all together? And oh my gosh, and like I've got this and I've got that, and I've got the other thing, which is why your sticky note method is so good. But so again, right, it all goes back to who are you? Who do you have to be to write this book? One of the things you have to do is, like I said, the quiet time. But here's the other thing, right? It really is guiding them in listening to the direction of the book,
Hmm.
right? So they really have to so really being flexible. And this all goes back to a lot of mindset stuff, right?
Yep.
So initially, when I wrote my book, I thought, oh, I'm going to help women just lead better lives. I really wanted to help people write. And it was all from the inspiration of this woman who she retired here in Costa Rica, and she was an old professor of art in some university somewhere in the US. And she supplemented her income by having these art intensives. And people would come to Costa Rica and have this great 5 days with her. I'm like, oh, I should do that with my writing. Well, I hadn't yet written the book and there was all this other stuff going on. But when you're talking about listening to the direction of the book, my own book, I thought, I'm going to do a memoir. This is how I'm going to write the book and launch the coaching career, right? I'm going to tell people about my life, the life lessons I learned, and the obstacles I overcame. And this is why you should, chase your own dreams and really align with what you're doing for a living. And what happened was by chapter 4, maybe, it was like, wow, this isn't really a full memoir. I'm writing about the lessons I learned from my father abandoning me as a child,
Hmm.
or I'm writing about the lessons I learned from when I went through a divorce with my ex-husband. And I'm like, okay, you know what? That's the book. I'm not going to force it. And there were I'd had essays I'd written, things in journals that I would have loved to put in the book, but they didn't fit those two categories. So guess what? That's going to be for another book. So it really is difficult sometimes, especially when there's a lack of being quiet, and there's a hell-bent feeling of, oh my gosh, I have to put this in the book, but it's not jiving with the rest of the book. It
Right.
really is about teaching people that process of listening, right? We
Yes.
really do have to listen to what is going on with the writing and how that's fitting in with what this story is going to be about.
Right. And it's absolutely okay to write about those things that you want to write about, because what you're doing is you're actually going through that healing process as you're writing them. It just doesn't necessarily belong in that book. It might belong in another book, or it might just be,
Exactly.
you know what, I just wrote this and it can just sit there on its own. That's okay. Right. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people do what you did in thinking that they have to cram it all into the book. And I'm like, no, not
No,
really.
don't do that.
And that was kind of my experience too when I wrote The Escape, which was about me leaving my husband. I wanted it to be a memoir. I wanted it to be the whole thing about my life and blah, 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 what led to this and that and the whole thing. And then I realized it doesn't make sense. So I wrote a mini book, which was basically my experience and what I did in order to leave a relationship that had become abusive. And that really was the whole book. And it's what I call a mini book. I think it's less than 100 pages. It's super easy and quick. And I thought, you know what? That's all that is. It's just kind of a how to because I was a fortunate person that I got out of a relationship that could have become dangerous, probably was more dangerous than I realized at the time. But I just, I didn't need to have all the backstory about my life. I didn't need to have all the backstory
Yeah.
about how we met and blah, blah, blah. It didn't make a
Right.
difference. It really didn't. The crux of that little book was these are the steps that worked for me to get out of my relationship in a safe manner. That's
Yeah.
it. That's the whole book.
Yep. And you're right. What ends up happening is whatever the other things are that you wished you could have put in there, that is for another time or another
Sure.
book. Or maybe it really is just for your healing. One of the things that I was thinking about in my own story was I was like resisting myself because I
Mm.
was like, I thought I like healed from all this stuff. Like, why am I writing about it? Like, but you know what? When you've had those experiences, I truly believe, by the way, and I do put this in my book, I believe that part of the reason I married who I did marry and why I had that relationship was because of the experiences of being abandoned by my father, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, I have it all in the book, right? I talk about, I reconnected with my father after not seeing him for 25 years. I talked about everything. And it just felt like one of the things that some of my English professors would say in university, right? They'd be like, if you had to pick a topic, for example, that I'd say, well, I don't know what to write about. They're going to write what you know. And
Right.
what more could I know than those two experiences,
Yes.
which, by the way, I really believe formed the person who I am today.
Absolutely.
So write what you
Yes.
know and really pay attention to where the book is
Yes.
going.
Yeah. And it's interesting because all those life experiences make up who you are today, but it doesn't define you. It is
Exactly.
not the definition of who you are. It is the experiences that create who you are and how you serve other people.
Yes, and what you do with them, right?
Yes.
We are not defined by them. What can we do with them that not make it okay? Because certainly my father abandoning the family would never be okay. Certainly, some of the things that went on in my marriage would never be okay.
Right.
But once you start playing the blame game, you then stay in the victim role. And that is not what it's all about. It's all about taking what you've been given and moving on to become a better person.
Exactly. We all have to take responsibility for everything that happens in our lives because we, in some way, shape, or form, we have attracted those situations, whether it was to spur us to heal childhood
Yep.
trauma, whatever that might be. But if we don't take responsibility for it, you're right, we stay in victim mode. And that was the whole part for me that I was like, I refuse to be a victim. I am a
Yes.
survivor. Right. So when you shift that narrative in your head, especially, and in your heart, it empowers you to move forward. So that brings me to an interesting question for you, because this is a topic that comes up quite a lot. What have you noticed with authors regarding imposter syndrome and any subconscious trauma that is coming to the forefront? What are some of the things that you see when working with other authors?
Well, imposter syndrome is huge, right?
Yeah,
And oftentimes, imposter syndrome happens with the most unlikely characters, right? So you have a person who's very strong, they come across as very professional, they are very accomplished, and you're thinking, "Oh, okay, so this is going to be great getting into this project." And then the next thing you know, you're like, "Hello, did you forget about the project?" And it's like, "Oh, wait a minute. There must be a reason why they're stalling." Lots of times it is imposter syndrome. Lots of times it is about working out those kinks of trauma, listen, these books that we're writing, particularly the one that you've written, the one that I've written, I'm working on a project right now. These are experiences that we feel they need to get out into the world because our experience and our writing the book could be somebody else's toolbox, right?
sure.
This is how, like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not crazy. Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. But what's happening in the writing of the book, right? And listen, when you're going through it, right, whatever trauma that you're going through and you're going to write about, you're never going to write that book while you're going through it. I think I guess there's exceptions to the rule, but what I'm finding is, people have to go back. And just like I experienced with my own book, I'm experienced with other authors that they'll be like, well, I just can't look at it. And I'm like, no kidding. You're going back into a time, reliving emotions and feelings and
Mhm.
experiences that you have not had to think about in a long time and that you probably have dealt with. But you know what? When it's depending upon the level of trauma, and it really doesn't matter, it depends on the person as well. Like, yes, you've dealt with it. Yes, you're good now. Look at what you've done. And now you're writing about it. So it really is quite eye opening
Mm.
that, whatever traumas that we've been through, whatever traumas that we're writing about, they're going to have an impact on it. Our brains are these amazing computers in our heads, right? And
Exactly.
we're drudging up all the old stuff. I found it with my own book. I would write a chapter and I'd be like, I just have to walk away from a while. Like, ugh,
Yeah.
like I feel
Yeah.
icky, you know?
Yeah. It's true. And I feel like the one thing that I think people don't realize is that when you've come through the trauma and you've done the healing work, then when you go back to write your book, yeah, it's going to drum up all the demons. It's going to open that closet full of skeletons. But the interesting thing is that once you've done that and you've written the book and you've published it, it's like you can close the door on that chapter forever. It's done.
Yeah.
It is now out in the world. Like you cannot
And
take it back, right?
and don't
It's,
forget, so one of the things with the struggles, right? I think somewhere in the subconscious of some of these authors' minds, they're hoping to get to that point that you just talked
yeah,
about, right?
yeah,
I'm just going to do this. But listen, the other stumbling block is, especially if you're writing a memoir, right? Oh, what are other people going to think, right?
mm, yes,
And oh my God, like, what should I do? And like, you feel like it's this big ball of wax. And sometimes it does come up, right? It happened with my own
sure.
book. I mean, there
Oh,
were a
me
couple of
too.
people who were like, oh, that was a little personal, don't you think? But I'm like, well, that's because I dealt with it, right? Clearly, some of the issues in that book, whatever you haven't dealt with, you're reading it and like, don't read the book, But I
Exactly.
do believe that it really is. And I think other people who read my book and who knew my story, I do think for some of them, it was like a relief. It was like, oh, I never knew what happened to you in that part of your life. Or like, I've got such great feedback that was like, I just knew it was the right thing to do. And
Exactly.
especially if it's like tapping you on the shoulder, you can't let it go. You have to do it. And you'll learn so much more and heal so much more than you would have ever imagined.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times people have said, oh, I keep getting told that I should write a book because my story is so interesting. I don't think it's that interesting. I'm like, oh my gosh. But when you write that book and suddenly you now are connected with other people who have had a similar situation, similar trauma, you can build community around that. I
Yes.
mean, it's amazing the people that come out of the woodwork when you share your story and people say, oh yeah, I had that experience too. And oh yeah, I was married to a narcissist, or oh yeah, I dealt with, intimate partner abuse. Oh yeah, I dealt with, having a slew of boyfriends that were abusive or whatever. Everybody has a story. They think
Yeah.
that theirs is not, well, first of all, it's unique to you, but also it's
Right.
not that different from all of our stories because we all have this human experience. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it really is. I mean, I was really glad when I published it, like to be starting to connecting with other women. Initially I was like, I was just going to do some life coaching, like general life coaching.
Mm.
And it was because of the nature of my book, right? I'm dealing with abandonment and divorce. And now I'm in all these groups and I'm like, oh my goodness. But it really was interesting because some of those conversations were like aha moments for the other woman.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't have to feel that way. But when you're in it, like you said, it's unique to you and you're thinking you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. But when you start sharing stories, that's why I think storytelling is so important. Once you
Mm.
share stories, you get other people's perspectives, or you get validation, or you get something that enhances your life so much more than if you're sitting off in a corner by yourself, like worrying about everything.
Yeah. Being isolated and trying to like process the whole situation of your life, your experiences. If you're isolated, you can't really heal. You have to be around other people. You have to have a common thread with other people to understand that, you know what? We all go through stuff. So let's support each
Yes.
other. I think it's fascinating. And it's amazing to me how many authors I talk to that have that similar experience, that they're like, wow, I didn't even know that my writing my book then led me to speaking out on, certain topics and creating support groups. And now I've developed my coaching business into a platform where I can now help other people with these similar situations. It's amazing to see how that little spark of healing can grow into something else.
Yeah,
That healing can grow into
really,
writing a book, can grow into speaking, can grow into a coaching career, can grow into doing all kinds of things that you never thought possible when you were in that wounded state.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people think that writing a book is a good idea because, hey, we can sell some books, and yeah, that's great, but it's never going to be just about that. It
No,
is never,
no.
I always say to people, life is a lot more than about the destination. When I was very young, putting myself through college and all this stuff, which a lot of it is in the book as well, I was very much, as a young woman, all about
Mm,
that. I'm like, all
yeah.
about the destination, all about that. I just got to get there. I just got to get the degree. I just got to get this. And honestly, when you're thinking about a book and the accomplishment of that book, everything that happens from the moment you start writing it to the moment you publish it and beyond
Yes,
is just this continual journey and ripple effect for so many. And and you're the only one who can write your book, right?
exactly.
Like you can't really, you're the only one who can put it out there.
Right. So, what are some of the results that you'd like to share with our listeners about what has happened in your life since you published your book and you put it out there to the world?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is I really started working. This was a shocking thing to me, but I started working on myself a lot more. And why it's shocking is because, number one, I've been interested in personal development for the last 30 years, right? From that moment I knew I wasn't aligned with my job. I was fortunate to have a couple of mentors in my life who said, oh, read this book or listen to this
Mm,
cassette or whatever. And now I'm dating myself with the cassette thing, right? But the thing of it is, that's what it was. And so I've always been sort of cognizant of that throughout my life.
mhm.
But what I didn't realize as I was doing is I wasn't living, for me personally, and it probably comes from, surviving poverty as a kid and the rest of it. But I was not living in an abundant mindset.
Mm,
And so since I published my book, my life has changed dramatically. And it really is funny. I got a question once about like, all right, so, how many books have you sold so far? And I'm like, you know what? That's how I was starting out, right? So I
yeah.
got all the way through the writing of the book, all the way through having a manuscript in my hand and to saying, well, how the heck am I now going to do this? Like I just spent all this
Right.
money.
Exactly.
And you know what? It flipped. The switch flipped eventually because I was being drawn toward things that would help me with an abundance mindset. Stop living in scarcity. It's not about how many stupid books you sell. It's more about what's going to happen. And listen, there, can I share with you a really quick story about,
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
So it literally happened 2 days after my book signing. So it's a big long story about how I got to my book signing. I had no plan. I had no marketing plan, but I sent the book to a character in my book who is real. She's a lifelong mentor of mine. And we hadn't seen each other in a while. We bumped into each other at a wedding. And she's like, so what's going on with you? I want to know everything. I said, well, at that moment, my book had just gone to print. I'm like,
Wow.
this time next week, she's like, I go, I hope you don't mind, you're in the book too. And she's like, you're kidding me. So anyway, she is the first person outside of my family who got the book and read it. And then she sent me this amazing message back. And so now one thing leads to another. She's like, I'm giving you your book signing. She has this amazing business in New Jersey.
Wow.
She's got a huge following. And she's like, I want to help you. So we do the book signing. And it was great. It was not too big. It was not too small. I just loved the venue. Everything about it was wonderful. So 2 days. So now this means coming from Costa Rica to go do this, right? So
Mhm.
my mom was at the book signing and everything, very proud. And so I said, okay, mom, give me a couple days and then I'll come down by you and I'll spend a whole, week to 10 days with you. So now that all happens. And now I'm in my mom's house and she has a really old car, but she sort of need a car to get down around there. She lives in South Jersey. And so I'm like, listen, we're just going to take an Uber. I felt like this whole thing was amazing, right? This whole thing was just amazing. And so this is 2 days after the book signing, right? So now we're in an Uber on our way to my sister's house, which was about a 35-minute drive. And we're talking, my mom is she's so personable. And she's talking to the guy driving us. And he's like, oh, I just retired from the New Jersey transit system, blah, 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 blah. I go, oh, I knew a gentleman who didn't, he didn't really get a chance to, but, he worked there for many years. I don't know if you would know him. This person was my mentor's dad, right? So she
Wow.
just gave me the book signing. And I said the name, and he said, that's my buddy. He said, I was there the day he died because he died working.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, I'm sorry. Do you mean to tell me you know him? He's like, know him. We spent Christmas parties together. And I'm like, I gotta tell her. I'm like, you can't
Wow.
believe what's going on here. And it was really interesting because first of all, I get whatever that ride cost. I gave him the same amount in a tip. Because here's the thing, right? My mentor's dad was working on New Jersey Transit. I was on the train going to work, right? And all those years, he said, I would give him my ticket. Goes, sweetheart, you save that ticket for when I'm on vacation. He gave me so many free rides, right?
Wow.
He looked after me. It would be 5:30 in the morning. I'd be standing there in the dark and he'd be like, come on, sweetheart, get on the train. He just was one of the most incredibly nice men, the antithesis of what my father was, right? He supported his family. He had 5 kids. He was an amazing dad. And here it is. I am in the car. Mind you, her dad died like 20 years previous. Like, what are and he doesn't even live down in
Yeah.
South Jersey. He said, I had a doctor's appointment down here and I thought I'd get some money, earn some money on my way back up north. And I'm like, I can't even tell you how weird this is.
Yeah, but
So
you know me. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that people are
exactly.
put on our paths for a reason, and that you were supposed to meet this guy and all that. So I think that's super cool.
And I think it was just a complete and utter validation for me. Like, I told you to write the book. You've done it. Now better things are coming. And
Yeah.
you know what? I have some work to do still, but my mindset is so far removed from what it used to be.
Yeah.
I'm not the same person. And listen, I've been doing that work for a long time, always thinking like, oh, I got this. I'm good. I know what I'm doing. I've got it together. And you know what? We always have more to learn and grow from. And
Yes.
yeah.
Our
So
healing and our growth is a lifelong process. It is not like, oh, boom, I finished my book and now I'm healed. No, it's like, no, you can now close the chapter on that part of
yep.
your life, but really it's so much more. There's because now you've as they say, when one door closes, another one opens. It's that process. So when you finish your book and you publish it and you're like, hey, that's done, you got to turn around and see which doors open because something is now showing up for you. So yeah, that's fascinating. I was going to ask you the question about what kind of spiritual faith-based experiences you've had since publishing your book, but that one about the Uber ride is just like totally on point.
It totally is. And it really has been just a whirlwind of that. There was another story about me taking my mom to the diner and we were talking about the book, and talking about how well the book signing went.
Mhm.
And, it was like we were sitting there way too long. I'm like, Mom, you go to the ladies' room. I'll pay the bill. I get up to pay the bill. Somebody pay my bill. And I'm like, that's impossible.
That's
I said, I haven't
amazing.
lived here in 5 years. Nobody knows me. And so the girl came out with it. She said, listen, the lady listened to your conversation and she felt like, you know what, that lady wants to help people. I'm going to help her. I'm going to pay for her breakfast. I ran back to my mother's house. I got 10 copies of the book. I gave it to the girls behind the counter. And that's when it was like that switch was flipped. This is not about selling books. Of course, it's nice to sell books. This is more about the further impact it's having on the people around you.
Yeah.
And that's the gift, right?
Absolutely.
I've not only been paid, like maybe monetarily, I haven't necessarily been paid back yet, but I've been paid back so far much more in those experiences that you cannot even put a price on.
So one of the things I really wanted to ask you is about your intuition. Tell me about a time when you used your intuition or you listened to your intuition, or maybe you didn't listen to your intuition. And what happened with that?
Okay, so I've got both experiences and both situations in the same experience. So I finished my book in 2018. And in 2019, I started working with my editor on it. And so now let's remember the timing, right? This is 2019. I was stalling on a lot of stuff, right? I was like, oh my gosh. So now we're getting into 2020, and then boom, COVID hits. And so COVID hits, I put the project on hold, and then we pick it up again. And now it's time to talk about the publishing end of it. And my editor said, I can do that piece of it for you as well. And she shows me this package, and I'm like, there's more money involved. And I'm like, so I assumed, right? So instead of using my intuition, I wasn't going to ask my partner for help with that, right? Because he puts the roof over my head. I've been teaching English online. That was paying for all of this stuff, but it was never going to pay for that publishing piece of it, right? I'd maxed my credit card out. And I was like, well, I just know I had a 401k, right? But basically, I rolled it over into an IRA a few years previous. And I'm like, I really shouldn't touch that money. But based on what was in there versus what this would cost, like, what am I waiting for, right? But I was like, no, it's not like I'm buying a house. It's not like I'm doing this. It's not like I'm doing that, whatever. And I was really stressed out about it. And I was like, I'm just going to have to figure out how many classes I'm going to have to teach online before I can pay for this, right? And then one morning, because by that time I had started a very sincere and consistent practice of being quiet in the morning, right? Being quiet, setting an intention for the day, writing, okay? Every day. Doesn't even matter, 7 days a week. So one morning I get up, and this is why it's important to do in the morning, right? Because your head is clear.
Yes.
So what came into my head was, it doesn't hurt to ask. So my cousin, when I rolled over my IRA, my 401k into an IRA, I rolled it over with my cousin. She had become a financial planner in this, organization. And I'm like, you just take care of it because I trust you, whatever. You won't know. It doesn't hurt to ask. You won't know unless you ask. So now I arrange a phone call with my cousin, and she's so excited for me. She's like, oh my God, this is amazing. I need to help you. And I'm like, can she help me? Like, I thought you could only pull from that, being penalized if you were in there had to be criteria, like, oh, you're buying a house, there's a hardship, whatever. She's like, this is the best time because you know what? We're in the middle of COVID and there's no penalties. I'm like, are you kidding me? I was just coming into my abundance mindset, right? It was still new. I was still very leery. I was still scared. Had I known what I know now, I would have asked for more and then had a proper marketing plan. But I just wanted to publish the book.
Right.
And that's what I did. And so it really is, initially not listening to that intuition and then saying, okay, I'm going to just try it. Like, what does it hurt to ask? People have only ever benefited from asking questions.
Right. The worst that can happen is you can get a no.
That's
or
it.
Maybe not right now. Right.
Right. Yeah. So when that whole ball got rolling, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have the book in my hands. And I couldn't believe it. And it really was pivotal. And it really opened my eyes to how money is actually energy.
Yeah.
We have to treat it differently in order for it to come back to us. And we have to, the intuition, you have to follow your intuition. We were built with that. I believe we were born with. Why would we not be born with something like that? We were born with eyes to see, ears to hear, a mouth to taste. Why would we not be born with something that ticks us off on what you should do?
Yes.
And I notice I live a lot more with it now every day. Even something as silly as, you really should shut the door. And then the next thing you know, I come home and there's a lizard in front of the door. And if I had not shut the door, the lizard would have been in that. I know those things sound silly, but the more you practice them,
yes,
the more natural it comes to you.
Well, and it's interesting. That I obviously read cards. I very much operate in the realm of,
I love it,
using your intuition. And for me, your intuition is actually, it is your higher self. It is the little nudge telling you to, stop by the post office. And then you run into somebody that you haven't seen in 10 years or whatever, it's all those little things, because what happens is throughout our lives, we go through programming, right? We are programmed by our parents, education, our careers, our spouses, our friends. Like, there's a lot of messages that get embedded in that supercomputer in our brain, right? And so what happens is those messaging can sometimes shut down your ability to listen to your intuition, because then you start
100%.
doing the self-judgment thing. Oh, was that really the right thing to do? Should I really take out my 401k to publish my book? That just seems so illogical. It seems so frivolous, risky, like too risky to do this. And so the problem is that when you listen to your intuition, just like you did, you realize that, wow, what if I had not done that? I would still be sitting here not having my book done, right?
I just said that to someone the other day. I just said it to a woman I was talking to on the phone. I said, once you, because there's that whole thing, right? Once you're on the path
Yes.
is created for you.
It just
And
unfolds.
it just unfolds. And so the thing of it is, I just said that to this woman the other day because it's been a bit of a struggle, but I gave my own example because I was like, listen, after that, life also happened, right? My partner got
Right.
sick. I had to help him. My mom got sick. I had to help. I would have not been in the right. I was in a very good, and then think about it, right? I'm editing the book in the middle of COVID. Like, what else are you going to do? Right.
Right.
So the thing
Yeah.
of it is, I'm so grateful and thankful that I did that because there's always going to be something, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I work 60 hours a week. Oh, there's always going to be something.
Yes.
And so, and trust me, when I wrote that book, it wasn't like I was unemployed and sitting around. We owned a restaurant here in Costa Rica. I was teaching English online. It was mayhem. And when I came out with the book, in fact, many of the people were like, well, when did you have time to do that?
Exactly.
So the thing of it is, you just do it. If you are being led down a path that says you need to tell your story, maybe you even need to write a piece of fiction. I don't care what it is. You need to do it because that's there for a reason. And you're right. All these things chip away at us and we start second guessing ourselves. There's this phrase, I don't even know who coined it. I think I was trying to look up the other day on who coined it. Couldn't find it. But it says, before there was an opinion, you had a mission.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And all those little things that chip away at our self-confidence and second guessing ourselves, that's what leads to that imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome is like the
Absolutely.
basket that holds all that negativity and that self-doubt, right?
Yep.
It's like, so like, okay, time to dump out the basket, go through it and go, yeah, this isn't true. This isn't true. This is just a blatant lie.
Right.
Like all the falsities that you've been told about yourself that you're like, yeah, none of that stuff is real. None of that stuff is real.
And you really have to listen to yourself. Nobody can tell you better about yourself than you.
True.
And lots of times that'll mean, having people think you're crazy or people thinking, well, I don't know what you're doing. So you know what? You just keep those people who are just supportive of, who are raging fans of yours and say, you know what? I believe in you.
Yeah.
And keep those people closest to you because that's what will get you through.
It's okay to let people go out of your life. Sometimes they extricate themselves from your life,
true.
and that's okay. I actually had gone through recently where I had a couple people who just kind of stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped communicating with me. And my initial thing was, because this is what I was taught, what did I do? And then I realized, I was like, whoa, don't do that. It's nothing that you've done, because they haven't said anything. So you cannot put yourself in that space. You cannot label yourself as something that you've done wrong. You're like, no, this is part of what's happening as we are changing, and the world is changing so rapidly. We actually just last night, as we're recording this, last night we just came through the 7/7 portal and a timeline shift again. So lots of things are happening behind the scenes. So if somebody chooses to leave your life, let them go. If they're supposed to come back, what's that saying? If they're supposed to come back, then they will, it's meant to be, kind of thing.
Like my mentor. I mean, when I bumped into her at that wedding, it was like, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. And that we vowed to each other to never let ourselves drift away again. But that's when because and I saw something else the other day that was really impactful, just scrolling through. It said, if something's meant for you, you can't push it away.
It will never pass you by. What is intended for you will never pass you by. It will show up in some way. It just might not show up as quickly or the way that you thought it was going to show up, but it'll still show up for you. And it's interesting too, because I think that's part of what the lesson is right now in our lives, is allowing ourselves, because you're going to experience that when you publish your book, right? You're going to have people that are
Absolutely.
going to just, they leave your life because they can't handle what you talked about. Or, there's that whole thing too. Oh, you got too big for your britches kind of BS, right?
Yeah.
No, this is you living your life, you sharing your story, you
Yeah.
finding community around that. And the rest of it can go away. Is it really
Yeah.
that important? Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that which is not really serving us shouldn't be there anyway. I mean, people will come. My mom always said, people, it's just people, sometimes people are in our lives for a reason. Sometimes
Yeah.
they're in our lives for a season. They're not always going to be, you know, all the same
Exactly.
people. And that's not healthy anyway. Who wants that? You
Right.
want to change it up a bit.
Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. Yeah, I've said that for many years, is people are there for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And,
Hmm.
you can't always determine who falls into which one of those categories. So let me ask you a question. As we close out, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
I just want to say to whoever is listening, who feels as though they need to be writing, or feels as though maybe it's not even writing, right? Maybe,
Mm.
there's some fans out there of yours who are like, oh, I want to listen to Susie's podcast. Maybe it's something else. Maybe writing a book isn't for you, but whatever you think that is, I really encourage people to explore it, because
Yeah.
again, right, it goes back to our intuition. It goes back to, I have a friend actually who, for whatever reason, I went through this training program with him a while ago, and we were all talking about what our bigger dreams were, because this training program was to give us, skill sets and communication. And so anyway, his big dream is to help children on the Gaza Strip.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, how did you come up with that? He goes, how did I come up with that? He goes, I've known some people who live there. He says, I see it in the news, and for whatever reason, it bothers me all the time.
Mm,
So he's actually making headway in the last several months of getting funding for helping children in particular on the Gaza Strip. Amazing. So
that is amazing.
really, like, some people might hear that and say, well, how are you going to do that? Listen, you don't know how you're going to do that. Don't worry
Nope.
about the how. Just take the first tiny step and see where it leads you, and the
Yep.
path will open up.
That's lesson one in manifesting. Don't worry about the how. Just
Yeah.
put the intention out there and let her rip, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so
exactly.
Connie, how can people reach you?
Oh, they can reach me at monroecoaching.com. My book is also available on Amazon, Holding On to Joy Through Abandonment and Divorce. And yeah, if you go on my website, monroecoaching.com, I've got all contact information out there as well. And that would be the best way.
Awesome. What do you think if we pull 3 cards for our audience to see what they need to hear about today, what they need, the lessons that they need to
I
learn
love it.
about today? What do you think?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
it's a great idea.
this has been fun. And you've had me do readings for you.
I have, and they've been amazing, and I've always loved that type of thing, but I never really paid much attention to it. And then, yeah, when you did that reading, that, I think you were helping me with an event, and then you did it for the 5 members or so who were on the event. And I was like, whoa, it was really
Oh,
good.
yeah, so much fun. I love doing this. And I love the fact that I can actually do this with my authors too. Now, there's a card that just fell on the floor so I'm going to
Okay.
pause for 1 second and then go get the
Okay.
card. Hold on.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, let's see.
I'm curious.
So the first card we have is a 27 card. So 2 plus 7 is 9. 9 are typically the end of a cycle. So
Okay.
this is saying that there is a cycle ending. What's interesting is 2025 is also a 9-year. We are wrapping up a lot of things, a lot of energy, a lot of things in our personal lives that are just kind of ending and closing out. So this card is exchanging gifts. Kind of hard to see with the light there. I'll kind of
Oh, okay.
exchanging gifts. And you can see that the color is pink. Pink
Uh-huh.
is reminiscent of rose quartz. It's kind of like the color of love, right? So, this is saying that by even us having this conversation, we are exchanging our gifts with each other. But this also says to the people listening to this today, it's very playful. There's a little ballerina, and then there's also a cheetah, little cat there, and they're playful with each other. The ballerina reminds me of the ballerina we used to have on top of our jewelry boxes as kids.
I
So it's saying,
remember.
go back to that childlike wonder What gifts do you have that you can exchange with the world? Go back
Mm.
and look at that and say, yeah, what are the things what are the experiences I've had that I can give to the world?
I think that's
how
really important. I
I
think that's
agree.
part of
I
the
agree.
reason why we're all here, right? Like,
Yeah. And having conversations like this, because I think
mhm.
that's what's important. We have a 46 card next. 4 plus
Okay.
6 is a 10. So 10 is the end of a cycle, whereas 9 is really you are at the end. The 10 represents you've actually closed out the cycle and you're moving on to the new chapter, the new cycle. This one is regeneration. And you can see in this card, it looks like a tree that's been burned down. Very
Yeah.
interesting because in California right now, we have a lot of fires going on. But what this is saying is you've already done the work. You've already burned it to the ground. You are now regenerating. And the tree is already starting to get green and blue and the colors coming back in it because, without fires, Mother Earth cannot replenish itself. It has to do this everywhere. It has to go through these cycles. So just
Mhm.
know that if you're hearing this, you have actually completed a cycle. You have burned it to the ground and you are ready to regenerate. So keep moving forward, people. Keep moving forward. Lastly, we have a 22 card. So 22 is considered a master number, and the card is blessed. It's very beautiful. She is a fairy coming out of a shell. So this is saying, and of course, we've got the pink and purple. So again, more of that love vibration. Amethyst is purple. Amethyst is protection. So this is saying, you are protected by God, your angels, your spirit guides. You are blessed, but don't be afraid to come out of your shell. Like, move forward, come out of your shell. You are protected. You are guided. So
I love all that.
love those 3 cards for today. That's
Yeah, they were
today's
good.
message. All right. So Connie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
If you found this interesting, I encourage you to join me for the next episode and be sure to subscribe. Every week, one lucky listener who subscribes and posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will be entered into a drawing for the grand prize, a private VIP day with me, valued at $25,000. So be sure to subscribe and post a review. Connie, any parting words?
Good luck with your stories. Keep listening to your intuition and watch the path be created for you.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here, Connie. And
Thanks,
until
Adam.
then, keep on writing so you can finish the damn book. We'll see you next time.
So that's it for today's episode of Finish the Damn Book. Head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $25,000 value private VIP day with Susan herself. Head on over to finishthedamnbookpodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Susan's gift. And join us on the next episode.